Okay then. Welcome back, everybody, and thanks very much for being so prompt in coming to join us as we explore the question of, is chasing sustainable 6G technology realistic? I mean, this is kind of fighting talk, it feels to me. I mean, we could have just had some kind of cage fight on stage almost between people who believe it is and who believe it isn't, because I think there has been a lot of conversation in the past 24 hours or so here at the 6G Symposium about sustainability, about how important it is. But even though that might tie in with, let's say, key value indicators, well, how do we actually do that? Again, there's so much that needs to be explored and pinned down on this. That I think it's worth taking the time to actually just test out some of these ideas and actually see whether this is something which is again a nice to have. Is it an essential? And if it is, then actually how do we go about making that happen? Fortunately, we've got a group of experts from very different parts of the value chain. Much like in the last session, we'll give them a few minutes to introduce themselves and some of their ideas with some slides, and then bring them all up on stage. Unlike last time, where my mouth ran away with me and you didn't get enough time to ask questions, right from the start, I'm going to turn it over to you in the first place. Obviously, I've got some things ready to go if you're feeling shy, but I'm kind of relying on the fact that you won't be. There's much more than we can fit into an hour. I'm pretty sure of that. So I want to make sure that you're getting the most value for your buck that we can give you. Having said that, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. I'm going to invite up our first speaker, Kim Parsons-Tromler from Lion Innovative. Thank you, Kim.
So thank you, Alex. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. My name is Kimberly Parsons. I'm the head of ThinkNet 6G, which probably most of you have never heard of. So very, very briefly, what is ThinkNet 6G? Is it working now? We are a think tank and network in the sense of community or ecosystem for 6G stakeholders. We're based in Bavaria in southern Germany, but open to anyone who's interested. It's completely free because it's fully funded by the Bavarian Ministry of Economic Affairs. So our focus is more on industry, say, than on research. And we have two main goals. One is connecting or networking companies and people with each other, obviously within Bavaria, but also between Bavaria and the rest of Germany or the rest of the world. And the second main goal is knowledge transfer. So from academia and research to industry, from large companies to small companies, and also lots of cross-pollination between industries. Yesterday, there were lots and lots of different mentions about sustainability. The conversation focuses very much on energy reduction or green energy for the part that we can't reduce. So part of ecological sustainability. We talked a little bit about the digital divide and connecting the unconnected, so part of social sustainability. And we talked a little bit about business models, part of economic sustainability. What I want to do is do a short focus on the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. I hope that all of you know these and have seen them already, but just in case you haven't, these 17 little boxes are the Sustainable Development Goals as defined by the UN and agreed on by every country in the UN. This is not just sort of a generic recommendation from some committee. This has been agreed on worldwide. Behind each of these little boxes are concrete, measurable targets to be met by the year 2030. And 4 of them specifically mention either cellular networks or internet access assumed to be based on cellular networks. The 4 where we're mentioned specifically are number 4, so quality education, number 5, gender equality, number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, probably the most obvious one, and number 17, which is partnerships for the goals. But we have something to contribute to all of the goals, not just the 4 where we're mentioned explicitly. So if we move to the right-hand side of the slide, this is a diagram from the GSMA. They do an annual report on how the mobile industry is doing at meeting these 17 goals. And what they've done is calculated what is our possible contribution to the goal and how far are we at meeting it. And if you look at the diagram, the gray part in the middle is where we already were, the status we had in 2015, which is when these goals were defined. And then the red bit shows what's the difference or the improvement between 2015 and 2022, because this is the report from last year. The current one hasn't been published yet. And then the numbers around the outside, the 60, 59, 56, et cetera, are the percentage of our possible contribution that we have met so far. So you see we're running in the best case at about 60% and in the worst case at about 44% and averaging somewhere in the low 50s. So the question to everyone is that good or bad? We're at 51, 52, 53%, maybe in total. In the best case, we're at 60%. Are we going to meet the targets? Are we on track or not? It's hard to say from just this diagram, but if we look at the timeline, these goals were defined from 2015 to 2030, so 15 years. And we are 9 years into the 15 years and have 6 years left. That's fairly simple math. On the timeline, we're at 60%. So if we look at this, we could argue, okay, at least in one of them, we're at 60% and the others were slightly below, but hey, we've still got 6 years to catch up. Are we okay or not? Are we on target? My personal opinion is no, we're not even close to being on target. The reason I say that is because of the 80-20 rule. If we look at these numbers, you see we're still in the easy 80%. We've already picked all of the low-hanging fruit. We're starting to work on the slightly higher hanging fruit, but we haven't begun to tackle that last 20%, the really difficult 20%. And so my question to the panel and to everyone will be, what do we need to do to actually get to 100% in the next 6 years? What do we foresee as being the really exceptionally difficult parts of that last 20%? And is there anything we can start on now to make that last 20% better? And then the last one, I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but it has to do with the deadline of the year 2030. We need to meet these goals using 5G, not 6G. So all of the new technologies we've been talking about yesterday and this morning are, for the sake of these SDGs, irrelevant. In particular, providing coverage using NTNs is not going to happen in this scale by 2030. We have to meet these goals using 5G. How are we going to do that? The second thing I'd like to discuss, I was actually planning to skip, but then Villa asked me to please not skip it. So I will talk just for a moment about energy. When we talk about energy, we talk usually about energy per bit or joules per bit that we need. And the joules per bit has dropped dramatically in the last years and will hopefully continue to drop dramatically in 6G. But at the same time, the number of bits we have is growing exponentially, right? Traffic has up to today always grown exponentially. There's no sign of it slowing down, so we have no reason to believe that it won't continue to grow exponentially. And what this graph shows is that talking about joules per bit, while we have increasing traffic, is misleading, because joules per bit is not constant. Joules per bit increases as the number of bits increases. So the more traffic we have, the more energy we need to spend to deal with that traffic. If you look at the graph, the blue line at the bottom is traffic predicted to 2030, and the red line is the corresponding energy needs to deal with that traffic. And as you can see, yes, they're both exponential, but the energy curve is growing faster than the traffic curve. So they're both exponential, but the exponent for energy is higher. And I find this worrying. And I think we have two big issues we need to look at when we're looking at energy, which I will leave generally to the experts. But yes, we need to work on joules per bit and bringing it down, but we also need to work on why are these two lines diverging like this? And what can we do to bring them back together so that our energy needs are at least only in line with the data traffic and not exponentially higher? And with that, I will sit down and hand over to whoever's next. I believe it's Ville.
Thanks very much, Kimberly. And you're absolutely correct. It is Ville Salmi from MediaTek. Ville, it's over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So maybe a quick introduction. So I'm Ville Salmi from MediaTek, representing Taiwanese company here, heading the Finland office. We are focused on the 5G chipset and 5G modem development in Finland, and going, of course, towards 6G with all of you guys. But and you know, I'm based in Oulu. You know, Oulu is the radio city capital in Finland. I thought that this slide, it will be kind of, you all know that why we need this, why we need the next gen of let's say communication technology. But thinking backwards, I have had some chats with some people here that that could we actually provide the services we are providing today with the 3G technology. I mean, and the background for this question is that we were all thinking that why we need new generation, why we need 6G. But I think that this, like the higher throughputs, higher data rates, more bandwidth, I think that that's where we need to go, and how to use the spectrum in a very efficient way. It was also mentioned in by some of the speakers yesterday that are we actually utilizing the spectrum we have license as operators. So that's also a very interesting topic. How do we measure that? But when I saw the curve from Kim just presented to us, so I thought that maybe as a technology provider from the modem side, maybe my presentation is more focused on how do we have the sustainability from the energy and energy consumption point of view, but also from the carbon source, or that what is the carbon intensity. But I think that we are still in the phase of, let's say, seeing what 5G will give us, moving from the handsets, mobile phones towards the other use cases in industry, automotive, and so on. But then there was a question from Alex that can we design for sustainability? And then I thought that these are just a couple of ideas. I'm not going to the details so that we have some time for the discussion. But at least one concept is that what we have been using already for some time, at least in the modem side, is that whenever we are in idle, just in service mode in the network, that we could be using kind of what we call like a low power radio, so that we can disable most parts of the chipset or most parts of the network, so that when we are just in service mode, and then have a very efficient radio when we are in active mode, receiving or transmitting data. And some concepts that hey, you can turn out the radio from the network, even from the network, if there's no traffic. That's one concept, and these pictures and some of the parts of the presentation are actually coming out as a MediaTek white paper in a very near future. I cannot say the date, I couldn't get it confirmed, but you can read more details on this. There are some examples also about the new waveform designs and more efficient or energy efficient beamforming as an example. Then the other aspect which I thought that is quite relevant is this carbon-aware 6G networks. And we have been introducing the idea of carbon intensity metrics or KPI. And maybe the picture explains it well, that when you know how your energy or electricity is produced, you can see you can calculate the energy and carbon per bit ratio, and then you can control the network based on what's the carbon or energy source. And I think that this is an important topic. It was also mentioned in the previous panel discussions. So I think that we have a possibility to build a technology for this. Yeah, okay. And then the last one, I was thinking, this is very simple slide, but I was thinking that are we actually, and question to all of us is that are we in this technology, we are developing the technology, that are we the enablers or drivers for the use cases? And I hope that we can discuss about that shortly. That was discussed also over the coffee today. And I also want to refer to the point what Sudhir from IEEE brought this morning, that hey, maybe we should not just sit here with all of us from the telecoms or research or academy or industry, but also go to the automotive and other who could be using our technology, healthcare, events, and so on. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ville. Our next speaker is John Spear from EPI Consulting. If you don't know who they are yet, you certainly will by the end of this hour. John, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alex. I want to be a little bit controversial. I'm going to just start off with a bit of background as to where my controversy comes from. So who are EPI Consulting? And we also run on behalf of the industry, JAC. So JAC is the joint association of CSR. It's now grown to 27 members. Dramatic growth, represents 60% of the telco spend with the supply chain. So if you want to sell 6G hardware or 5G hardware, these guys are going to buy it. And we, as a consulting, we don't just run JAC, we also work directly with a lot of the big telcos, like your Deutsche Telecoms, and also the suppliers like Samsung, Ericsson, these types of people. So that's the background. I'm going to talk a little bit in a second about some stats, but before that, I want to give you 4 things to think about and take away. First thing, this is real now in terms of sustainability. We have seen over the last year or so a dramatic increase in green bonds and green funding amongst the telcos. The telcos are raising money, billions of it, to buy the equipment that goes in the network, to dig in fiber, to buy base stations, antennas, etc. Without the funding, they can't do that. In the current environment, especially since interest rates come up, they are going for green bonds. Green bonds come with a requirement to reduce carbon. You don't hit your carbon reduction targets, your interest rate goes up. Treasury will speak to procurement and speak to technology officers and say, there are hundreds of millions of euros at stake here, get it sorted. So we're seeing it become very, very real. So actually, this matters if you want to sell equipment. Second thing, particularly in Europe, but we're seeing it across the world, there is a mad dash amongst the telcos towards green energy. And this is the first controversial thing. All I hear people talk about, energy efficiency will solve the carbon. It won't. For people like Deutsche Telekom, Telefonica, British Telecom, Vodafone, and that includes in places like Africa, are going 100% green energy. Energy efficiency matters because it costs money. Energy efficiency matters if I need to provide energy to the rest of society and I've not gobbled it all up with my network. But from a carbon and the green bonds and my financing costs, if I've gone renewable, it doesn't matter. What really matters to me is the embodied carbon in making the chipset, Mr. MediaTek. That's the type of thing that matters. So second thing, if you want to be sustainable, the industry, the customers are rushing. Some of them, most of them have gone there Even big ones like AT&T, 20% at the moment, and they have a very aggressive plan to get there. Third thing, it's all about the supply chain, stupid. It really is. And I'll come on to that now. It's where you make it. And also the customers, to some extent, the mobile phone operators. I'm talking carbon here. Fourth thing, if you want to sell your equipment, it matters now. In the last year, for instance, Deutsche Telekom, roughly 36 billion euros a year spend. They've introduced, and we're now rolling it out, 20% weighting around circularity and carbon reduction for tenders. You want to sell your shiny new 6G equipment, 20% of the tender weighting will go on that. We're just running the awards. We're rolling this out across Deutsche. Vodafone have it. A lot of the other telcos are doing it. So there's 4 really important things. It really matters for the telco customers who are going to buy the shiny 6G equipment. It really matters in terms of the actual supply chain, the consumers, less so energy efficiency, that the actual embodied carbon really matters. And the final thing is, I see this time and time again. Suppliers are saying, well, we've signed up to report our carbon to science-based targets. Absolutely super at a corporate level. I want to know products. It's now going down to, we talked about the last mile, how we take it forward. It's at a product level, because that's what I'm buying. I want to know the carbon footprint of the base station I'm buying, not that you've reduced the carbon footprint in Cupertino or Taipei or something like that. So no longer can you get away with, or people want that corporately, the customers want it. So 4 things, it's at the product and service level. Actually, it's not just about energy efficiency. That is not so important now. And actually, the carbon really matters to your customers. They will make buying decisions on it. They are now. And it really matters if you want to sell your equipment. So just quickly, I did have a couple of slides. These are available on the JAC website. We did a survey last year. 84% of the emissions of the JAC members, remember JAC, 60% of the global supply chain spend comes from scope 3. That's customer and supplier. So that's actually the customer using it, me plugging my mobile phone in to charge it, and the actual manufacturer of the mobile phone, the disposal, etc., not the in use. Sorry, these are all available on the JAC website. There's a whole report into this. What's really important to them? So for those about 90%, somewhere between 70 and 90% of the JAC members, it's all about scope 3. And these are things that are important. Network equipment and base stations, antennas, etc., consumer products, set-top boxes, then we go down. So this is what matters. This is where we've got to focus. We've got to make sure that we don't have a mountain of smartphones. We've got to make sure that base stations, etc., if they're upgraded, have a second life. And we've got to make sure that we're not exporting our carbon impact down the supply chain. And the supply chain are getting it. Samsung are just signing the first ever green energy deal in Vietnam. So they will be the first manufacturing site. Their factory within 12 months will be 100% on renewable energy. So it's happening even in parts of the world you think it can't happen. It is happening. Thank you, Alex.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, John. And the last but not least of our speakers today and panelists is Joseph Knoll. You may know him already from the as a Norwegian academic, but he also is in charge of the Basic Internet Foundation. And with that, I'll hand over.
Thanks a lot. Just let me ask you. That was a mistake. Who of you knows GovStack? Can you raise your hands? Right, that's exactly what I expected. GovStack is the combined effort of the ITU, the governments, to bring digital transformation to the governments in Africa. We, as the 6G, are doing a shit to connect the schools, to connect the societies, to help the governments to scale. And Kim, coming back to your point, SDG 9.3, by 2020, we see a massive increase of mobile broadband. By 2024, we still have 2.7 billion people unconnected. We don't even think about the standard, how this is going to happen. Sorry for being upset, but this is what it's all about. I really believe we need to revisit access, and I can take my jacket on again because now you know what GovStack is. So let's take the next story, and then Kate Gilmore, at that time, United Nations officer for the human rights in the digital age. Internet had the ability to dismantle the divide. Internet failed completely. The divide is getting bigger by every generation of mobile communication. That's what we need to tackle, and that's more than energy, much more than energy. And I have the pleasure of knowing Doreen Bogdan, the head of ITU, since she was head of ITUD. And so she smiles when she talks at me, even though I tell her, look, it sucks. ITU isn't doing enough to actually dismantle the divide. And you know, being an academician, we could talk a lot to our students, but what is better than talking is doing. So we actually looked at 5G and said, why have we failed completely? If we look at the access, we have this brilliant story of the network slicing, and Kim saying, yes, we need to do it in 5G already. And we could easily introduce the network slice for what we call the free access for digital pedestrians and digital cyclists. Adopt the model of the road. We need someone building the road, but once the roads are built, pedestrians and cyclists have free access to the road. What is hindering us to put that model into our network operation? It's maximum 1% of the bandwidth, because we earn money on sex and drugs and rock and roll and streaming and HBS and you name it. So the 1% for text and pictures is nothing in our network operation. And that is what I'm going to challenge you afterwards in the discussion. I have some more topics of that one. So that is the number one. The number two is then my last slide, and that is actually what is the role of the universities? And when it comes to the role of the universities, I'm so thankful that Wille reminded me to the Global Gateway and the EU initiative to connect Africa. And a certain part of that is actually, what are we doing with the national research and education networks? We need to empower the VACRANs, the Ubuntu nets, all the national research and education networks in Africa to then help not only connecting the tech centers and university, but put out a 5G base station, use the multi-MIMO to connect schools and communities. And by that one, getting 5G in operation, and at the same time, allow sustainability. And that is the model which we are running in Africa. We've connected more than 250 schools. Vodacom Foundation has announced that they want to connect another 1,000 schools with us in Tanzania. So we are on the right way. But what are 1,250 schools in Africa with 1.3 billion people? 1.3 billion people. Their voice needs to be heard, and it needs to be an integral change already in 5G and in 6G. I stop here, looking forward to the discussion. Please, Wille and Kim.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Joseph. So if I can invite you to join me on stage along with our other speakers, then we'll be able to have a chat. I don't know about you, but I found this very stimulating. There's lots of different directions that this conversation could go in. Obviously, we've covered off not just environmental sustainability here, but also societal and commercial sustainability. These things have all got to play together. I would love to dive into all of this, but I am going to invite people to put up their hands if you've got any questions or comments on what we've heard so far. Of course. Dean, we're going to reach over to you. You may have to come and get it to some degree. That
Thanks.
device.
Hi, Dean Bobby. I'm glad to hear the emphasis not just about efficiency, but also on green sources of energy for networks. I was at a data center event earlier this year, and actually there were 3 or 4 of the data center companies talking about building their own nuclear small modular reactors, given they've got a 10-year horizon, a bit like 6G. So I'm wondering, are we going to find, telcos buying SMRs as well? One other thing I will say is I do disagree with the exponential growth of data. It's not exponential and it is slowing down, but that's a separate story.
Okay.
Okay. So we have, sorry, the question there being more about the energy sources. Yeah. So that's, well, I'll start off with you, Joseph, and then turn to you, John, for that.
Yeah, I mean, I can only tell you the African perspective, and that is because energy is so unstable, most of the towers are actually equipped with solar cells anyway, and batteries. So that is the short answer.
Yeah, basically the simple answer is yes. So you look at the evolution in the UK, BT actually was one of the first people to put up a large scale a wind farm to generate their own energy. Then the UK energy market evolved. Now they have the single biggest green contract in the UK where they commercially buy it. We are seeing very much not just at the telcos within the supply chain. So another manufacturer of gateways, etc., Sagemcom, they built a solar farm next to their factory in Tunisia because we don't have yet in North Africa the energy market. So the simple answer is yes, they will, where the market won't provide, because the pressure is so great they have to get there. So they'll do it themselves, or ideally they will do it with the infrastructure of the country.
Can I add a tiny bit to that? Which is the data centers. The more softwareization we have in the network, the more functions we move from the network to the data center, the more dependent we are on the energy efficiency of the data centers. And of course, they are working very, very hard on improving their own energy efficiency and using green energy. So we're going to benefit from everything the data center people do as well.
Yeah, one very quick one. Energy security is critical. We're doing quite a bit of work with data centers. The grid can't supply with some of them. West of London recently, there has been a moratorium because they're sucking all the energy out. There's a social issue. How am I going to charge my car? How am I going to watch TV, etc.? So it's not just about green energy. It's about security of supply as well.
Excellent. Good point, John.
Over here.
There's another question. Yeah. Thanks, Monish.
Actually, the mic is already here,
oh.
so I can ask.
Okay.
Zoran Despotovic from Munich Research Center of Huawei. Actually, on the first graph, which you showed big difference between energy consumed and data. Exactly. I mean, just technically, there are many other parameters which are consuming energy. Not only the volume which you showed, but plenty of parameters which are important, and which we are actually seeing in our measurements. For example, coverage is definitely important. You need power for coverage. Then bit rate. For higher bit rates, you need more energy. Even though you are improving energy efficiency per bit transferred, you are going up with bit rates, so you're consuming more energy. Plenty of other parameters are there. So basically, we are making everything cheaper, making everything more accessible to the customers, and they are using more and more our systems, and they are making energy explosion. So that's actually what is happening and what we are seeing. If you can comment, that is. But my suggestion that how we could explain that.
I'm going to agree with them completely. And actually, the paper that came from is from Huawei, from Sweden, not from Munich, but from a researcher at Huawei. And the paper, I mean, the link I had on the slide somewhere, it covers not only mobile networks, it covers other wireless networks, it covers data centers. I recommend going and checking it out. But I agree we have this traffic growth. I'm trying to decide if I should make a bunch of enemies right now. Yeah, go for it.
Good.
I'm going to make a whole bunch of enemies right now.
Yes.
I believe we need to work on energy efficiency.
Yes.
Absolutely. But we also need to work on reducing the rate of growth of data. Because some of the data is data we want, right? We want to connect the unconnected. We want to provide services to industry or automated driving. At the same time, we have end users, the teenager on the phone, streaming video. And I think if we put effort into educating the end users on what the actual impact is of what they're doing, that we could reduce some usage there. If I take just streaming a video, for example, you could download it ahead of time on Wi-Fi and watch it on the train, or you can stream it while you're on the train, and they have a different emissions impact. But the normal people out there who are not part of our industry don't know that and don't have an easy way of determining it. And there are apps where you can that will estimate your CO2 output, but you have to be interested enough in that to go and find the app and install it. And I think we as an industry need to put effort into educating the users on what their impact is.
Good point. Joseph had his hand up first, so
Sorry, I wanted to bring it over to you anyway, because one of the points actually what we see in Africa is that it's not only the energy efficiency, it's also the cost of access. If you really have to pay for the access, which nobody here in Europe does, right? It's part of our bread and butter. But if you really have to pay for every bit, that's where we build the decentralized information spots at the school. Because if I have 900 students, pupils, who are watching a video again and again and again on health, if they do it through the network, it's a different footprint than if they do it from a local Raspberry Pi. And that brings me over to the discussion of the decentralized internet. And of course, why do you telcos not offer me a 5 megabits per second for $20 to connect all my schools and community? You start with 20 megabits, 50 megabits, 100 megabits per second. I want the 5 megabits per second, and I want the websites which support that. Ville?
Yeah, and this is actually good because I'm kind of now coming from the technology point of view, and I have been thinking this a lot myself, that actually the current networks and the data pipe, it has no clue what is the data to be transmitted. That how can we build, and I think that maybe this is a good topic for, and I know that it's being studied, that if we have a prior information that what is the data we are transmitting through the network, so we can transfer the data, I mean the video, in the evening or the time when we have lots of solar power, or kind of we can control the network and to the mobile edge or somewhere in the, so that we are not all the time powering up the huge data center with the carbon. And I think that that's the one thing that we can do it at the application level or device level, but of course in the network, and kind of then I think that we have lots of opportunity to use AI on analyzing that how we use it, and then bring that knowledge to the technology to control this data pipeline, data pipeline, that it's not just only, I call it stupid. I'm a bit extreme here, but
Thanks.
John.
I was just going to make 2 points. First one, a little bit controversial, which is if the network is running on green energy, if the data centers are being powered by their small modular reactors, if MediaTek have got 100% renewable energy to make the chips, does it really matter from an environmental viewpoint? No, it doesn't. It matters from a cost viewpoint, but it doesn't matter. Second point I was going to make was we did some research from one of the big telco operators on the consultancy side of our business last year. Consumers want what they want. They rely on the networks. It was really clear. We asked a whole suite of questions about you as consumers. Do you want sustainability? Absolutely yes. Are you going to change your habits? Absolutely no. I want the i15. I want to put it on the desk in front of me in the conference in a levy so everybody sees I've got the best smartphone. But I want a Telenor or Telia or whoever to actually deal with it for me. So your point about the networks and the networks understanding, and we run an innovation awards for telecom. It's on at the moment. I am seeing at least 3 innovation applications from providers which are going to be able to do that type of thing and tell the consumer how the operator has dealt with it for them, because that's what the consumers want. Quite frankly, my kids don't want to have to download at home and not read. They just want to go and talk crap to their friends when they're on the bus, on the latest phone.
But let me give you the analog on, we've created a dashboard for the transition of the energy on Spitsbergen, the island in the very north, where we switched off the coal energy. And then we said, okay, here you have a dashboard, right? We want to convert to solar, to wind, to diesel, to whatever. This is the CO2 footprint. What are you going to invest? And what does it mean for your energy price? So we made this dashboard to actually make it visible to the consumers. And I think that could be a solution, that we have to educate the consumers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you could, and I have been thinking like the Android framework, that similar where we have the signal strength bars, that we could have some kind of indicator for CO2 that, hey, now the energy is coming, the whole chain is using that, now it's a busy time. And there are, I think that there are people and teenagers who would be really looking at that indicator.
That's good stuff. And I will come back to this.
Yes.
But I would like to also give
Sorry, we can talk 1 hour about this.
To ask questions. Monisha, I think we've kept you waiting long enough.
No, that was a fascinating discussion. I want to make a couple of points in the question. One is that, going to the connectivity in Africa, I think many of the same problems are also there very much in rural areas in many countries, in the US, for example. And the biggest problem there is of backhaul, not of access. So it's really that it's very difficult to get backhaul into really remote places. So, and that is independent of what Gs you're using. Whether it's 4G or 5G or 6G, doesn't matter. If you can get cheap backhaul, you can do local distribution in a rural area very easily rather than trying to go long distances, which ties into one of the first things when I started my career in wireless a long, long time ago. A very wise mentor told me that the best use of wireless is to go as quickly as you can to the nearest wired point, right? We've lost track of that. We think that just because we can connect to a base station that's miles away, that's outdoors, we should, rather than connecting to the outlet that's coming out of the wall. So, we are spending, going back to, my topic, one of my favorite topics about indoor versus outdoor, 80% of data is consumed indoors, and we should try to figure out a cellular network that recognizes that. Our cellular networks are blind to that. They don't know whether a person is reporting a bad signal strength because they're indoors or very far away. 2 very different situations, right? And so unless we get more intelligence and try to do things differently, we're going to be transmitting 20 dB extra power just to reach a person indoors who may have alternate ways of connecting to the internet, right? So is anybody in industry or any of these organizations thinking about and let's not get into this war about Wi-Fi and telcos and everything else. As a user, I don't really care, right? If I'm connected, it doesn't really matter. And whose responsibility is it then to make sure you're connected in the most energy efficient way? And is anybody thinking about that?
Really good question. Joseph?
Yeah, I want to catch the first point. Of course, you're absolutely right. Whether we talk about the Philippines, whether we talk about rural India, the connectivity and the access to the backhaul is the number one story. But like for transmitting 5 megabits per second into a community center, into a school, that is a piece of cake even for 4G networks.
Yep.
I mean, we reach that through external antennas, even on 3G networks with 20 megabits per second. On the second part, yes, and Wille, I play that ball to you.
Yeah.
I'd love to have the do-it-yourself network in my home. Because I absolutely agree. I have fiber to the home with 500 megabits per second. I want to attach the next generation network in my home to make sure I have the shortest way, minimum radiation, maximum performance, minimum CO2. Wille, when are you delivering the ship?
You can address that with Wi-Fi, correct? We are also doing Wi-Fi technology at Mediatek. But kidding. But indeed, I think that this seamless operation between the cellular network and Wi-Fi is really the crucial thing. That why on earth I'm using 5G at home if I have the Wi-Fi. Because if I have the nowadays, if you really have the fixed wireless to your home, then you have the Wi-Fi. I would say so. I think that would be one answer.
Security, safety.
With the Wi-Fi.
Well, let's say security operations, alarms in my home. Those could be reasons for me to using the security architecture of the 5G networks to actually deploy them in my home. But sorry, now we are in a different topic.
Yeah.
I've got some questions lined up sort of off the back of these, but I just want to make sure that we're answering everybody else. So does anybody have a hand up?
I do have a question.
Brilliant.
This is a supply chain specifically around electricity. So when training AI models, OpenAI was spending $700,000 a day on electricity. As telcos and others start not only training their own models, but pushing the electrical cost toward end customers, the actual total cost of training those models goes up. Is there any green initiatives or BOM requirements that are pushing in the direction of green AI?
I think that's probably a you question there, John.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting one. There have been a number of aspects around the whole supply chain. So one aspect which has been discussed at length and is conscious is not so much on the energy, but around the actual cost. If we start using recycled material, there's a lot of things you can do in sustainability which will take cost out. Should the telcos capture that, go after that? The basic idea is no, absolutely. From the industry, the view is no, we need to motivate the supply chain. We need to put best practice to you and help you do it. The flip side is that there are a lot of practices which put the cost up. And if green energy costs 10% more in a country, or the payback on solar panels, etc., or actually digging fiber in, or actually installing networks, we want all our suppliers to have green vans. They've got a 10 or 15-year payback, and we're going to give them a 1-year contract with flexible so that we can move it about. I am not seeing a major uplift in investment either. So simple answer there, no. Then the other side of it, and I am seeing a lot of interest in this, and that is to try and capture and support the consumer. The problem is it doesn't matter to the consumer. If I buy a hub or a phone, and actually you can cut the energy usage by 5 or 10% by deep sleep modes, turning it off, etc. In aggregate, that can save millions and millions of euros and thousands of tons of carbon. But for me, as a consumer with one set-top box, I maybe save 10 or 50 cents a week. And you know what? I want to walk in after a hard day in a levee and turn on my TV and it to fire up instantly. So unfortunately, no, we are pushing from the supply chain. We're pushing really hard. So one of the things we're doing in Jack, we've just identified the top 50 suppliers, which account for about 50% of the supply chain carbon. And we're individually engaging with them, requiring LCAs, requiring carbon reduction plans, and requiring them to report back verified carbon. This is moving at a pace very seriously, but we are trying to do that sensitively, but I am not seeing they are prepared to say, okay, we'll pay 10% more for the hardware, because they're in a commercial world. And actually, if I'm competing against Alex and I can offer a contract that's lower,
I'd like to see you try. It's a good point, though. And we've got a question over here. Otherwise,
Hi, I am Sumit. I wanted to ask you about, I had the same question what Professor Manisha asked. Just wanted to build upon that. One of the major topic around 6G is high data rate. And that's where we go over high frequency circuits. But I hardly see a discussion around that. It's more like rural connectivity. I think we can do that 4G or 5G. When Professor mentioned that the major traffic comes from the indoors. So what is the real challenge there? Is it industry is not seeing a business over there with the high frequency? Because the major cities, the major companies, they are the first ones who are going to use the high speed internet. And who's someone showing the slides that the power consumption per bit gonna increase, and that gonna come because we're gonna move to the higher data rate, higher frequencies. So what is industry is doing towards that, and why there's a less discussion in that direction when it comes to 6G?
We had a short discussion on that beforehand, and it's actually, yes, you make the money where the money is. And of course, if a woman in the outskirts of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania uses $4.50 for food for her whole family, 10,000 Tanzanian shillings for a week of food, there is no money left for mobile communication. And that actually then brings us over to, you can't earn money on these people, but I really hope that the whole discussion on the SDGs is going to force us, and either we do it as mobile operators, as the value chain providers, to connect every single person and provide basic services, or we are going to be forced by legislation at one point in time. Now, I know that telcos wait for the regulators to regulate them.
Yep.
I would have loved to see the other way around, that we are proactive.
now, I do think that might tie in actually with some of the discussions that we've been having this week around key value indicators, and particularly what Jean was mentioning earlier around this idea that if you can prove the value of what you're doing, then you can start to make a very different kind of business case. At the moment, no, the lady in Dar es Salaam of no particular value to the operator. But if you can turn it around and be able to project sensibly that by providing these services, you push more value into the economy, and so on, potentially even quantify that, then all of a sudden there's a business case.
Yep. And then we become enablers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm talking too much.
I actually wanted to support Joseph with the idea, okay, maybe there isn't a great business case in Africa at the moment, if we're looking at it from a Western and European point of view, because the business cases we're using here just don't work properly there. But Joseph has found with his basic internet
Foundation.
A fairly simple model that does work. It makes money for the providers, and it allows the poor women in rural Africa to have a very basic connectivity. So there are business models out there that work. We just have to convince the telcos to look at different models than what they're used to.
Yep.
I was just going to add to that. One of the things I'm starting to see, and I would say starting to see amongst the telcos, presentation was about carbon, because it's all about carbon today, because that's where the funders are focusing. The discussions in the background, some of the leading telcos, the ones that were doing things like building their own wind farms 5 or 10 years ago, and now focusing on two things in a big way, which is the social value and the ecology. It's very nascent at the moment, but they see the funds are going to be there. So tomorrow's raise funding of 3 trillion or billion euros to buy my 6G base stations will probably come with a requirement to deliver some social value and to look at the ecological impact. That's tomorrow, not today. Today it comes with carbon, but I'm hoping it'll get there.
But when it comes to sustainability, the traffic gonna increase in the big towns, the big cities, the major, let's say New York or all the maybe the Bangalore or whatever it is. So sustainability, power consumption gonna go high in those areas, and they're gonna use the high-speed internet for the AR, VR. If you read any white papers from Samsung or from MediaTek, they talk about the AR, VR, augmented reality or mixed reality, and they are very high-intensive data rate applications. And there, maybe we need to think more about sustainability and power consumption. Of course, rural connectivity is one thing, but probably that's gonna go with the existing technologies. So why there's less talk about still those applications and the power consumption there?
So, Kim
I didn't
first.
get to finish making enemies last time, so let me finish making enemies.
Okay.
I firmly believe we should be charging for usage. I know the countries that most of us come from, we have flat rates, and flat rate anything just encourages people to waste. If we had to pay for these VR and AR applications, then the users would pay more attention to which applications they really need that for and which ones they maybe don't, and would end up automatically saving bandwidth or traffic in that case. If we compare it in our minds a little bit to the energy transition, I mean, John said the users don't want to change, and it's true, the users don't want to change. But it was the same with energy, right? Energy was also increasing exponentially, nothing to do with communication networks, just
Yes.
how much energy are we using at home? And no one wanted to change. But when we added, charging models based on the time of day, and we made LED light bulbs cheaper, the normal light or the old light bulbs, etc., people did change, right? If we give the right impulses and education, then most people will be willing or forced to change.
And on that matter, we in Finland at least, we were forced to change because we were importing maybe 20-30% of the electricity from Russia earlier, and we are not doing that anymore. But I think that you were also referring to the, let's say, to the higher frequencies, millimeter wave technologies, that are we utilizing them today, or is the industry utilizing operators? And I feel that we have not seen yet the full-blown usage of the millimeter wave FR2 frequencies in the industry, and that's also very interesting that where it goes. Yeah. We know that some of the operators have actually shut down the millimeter wave operation, and I think that the Docomo-san was mentioning yesterday this topic.
Now that's fantastic. I'm aware time's running away from us, but just enough time for Mikko to ask a question.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So Mikko Stol from Nokia Bell Lab. So the theme of the session is that is chasing sustainable 6G realistic. So my personal view is that 6G will not happen unless it's sustainable enough, taking into account all of those things that have been said here. But I would like to ask for a simplification anyway from all the panelists that so is chasing 6G, sustainable 6G realistic?
It's a very good question. Is it realistic?
Basically, yes. And the reason is because the telcos are wanting to sell services which will help with overall sustainability. Your telemedicine, your teleagriculture, there is a lot of services out there. GSMA produce some really good reports, Jesse do, etc., which talk about that. Fundamentally, the telcos want to sell services. They will help humanity. In Africa, we can argue about the charging mechanism, but 6G will enable that. But you're absolutely right. It has to be sustainable behind it. Otherwise, we won't get the fundings to make the investment to deliver the service to the customers. So I think yes, but the two go hand in hand. You're on the money there.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I think that this is twofold. Echoing what you already said about this green energy and so on, and where the energy source is coming for the manufacturing and so on. But I think that also, like coming from MediaTek, I think that there's lots we can do with the technology and even with the silicon technology, so that we can save more power on more efficient computers and really the base engineering.
I'd say we actually don't have a choice. Given the state of the climate today and the predictions that are there, if we were to roll out a new technology that's not sustainable, that would be massively irresponsible of us. And we should be shut down by the regulators or governments if we even try to do it.
I'm not that optimistic. I've been group leader of in Telenor for the 3G development, and 3G was set always online, always connected. And I didn't have to go further than to Sweden to be completely unconnected because I didn't want to pay the roaming fees. And I actually see that the mindset in telcos is still, we wait for the regulator to regulate us. And I very much appreciate the input from John saying it won't be the regulator, it will be the finance giving organizations. And it will be the CFOs which are forcing our mindset to change, not only for energy efficiency, but also for social values. Thanks, John, for that one.
Fantastic. Now, I am aware that we're up to time. I think this is something that we can take a lot more conversation over during lunch. If you'd like to be back here in an hour, then we've got an afternoon full of similarly gripping conversations covering AI, indoor networks, terrestrial and non-terrestrial integration, all kinds of stuff. But for now, I'd encourage you to speak to my panelists over lunch. Probably not Kim, given that she's made so many enemies here.
It was nice
But
knowing you.
otherwise, thank you very much.